The Sillage Racing SR+Two controller is a pretty powerful controller. Its main feature is this OLED display. It has a battery inside in order to, well, depending on which version you get. This one is the high amp wired version. It's got a battery inside to keep the computer alive when there's no track power, but you got to remember to switch it on. There's a little switch back behind the trigger. And once it's on, it'll do a little boot up. And it'll show you on the screen pretty much all the throttle characteristics. You adjust your max braking using this knob. You can actually set a left or right-handed, which basically swaps the sensitivity or min speed and the brake knobs around so that this is sensitivity and this is brakes. But this is always curve. But in right-handed mode, you basically turn this knob up or down. That just goes around and around, and you can look at the number on the screen, or the depth of the little line below indicates how strong the brakes are. Same with the max or min speed or sensitivity. As you turn that up, the step at the very beginning of the throttle moves up, and you also have the numbers to refer to. That only goes up to what? Oh no, I guess it goes up to all the way up to 100. So you can literally just use it as a drag controller, I guess. But usually, depending on the car, you're going to want that down somewhere between 10 and 30. So I'm going to set that back to 20. The middle knob controls the shape of the curve, so it can be very aggressive, meaning the power comes on sooner and then levels out, or very soft, meaning that the power is mild until you get towards the end of the trigger. As you can see, every time you make a change, it does a backup to the memory storage to remember your settings a few seconds later. There is also a turning that the wrong way. There is also a manually programmable curve option where you can go and manually change the steps of the curve. I think there's 10 different steps that you can manually change, and it interpolates between those steps for you. When you press any of the buttons, pressing any of the buttons gives you access to other options. For example, the ABS or anti-lock braking, which is basically sweep brakes or brake dissipation, whatever you want to call it. Anti-spin or traction control, which is like an amp choke, so that it ramps up the speed gradually rather than instantly. And max speed or top speed, or like a volt choke. While you're holding down any of these buttons, you can adjust any of those settings. So usually when I want to adjust the max speed, I hold down the other button, and then I can turn this down to change the max speed. And this will go down, let's see how far it goes down. Probably to 0. Nope, 20. So you could make that a kid's controller pretty easily by turning the max speed way down. But we'll turn that back up to 100. All right. And then the middle knob controls the spin control or amp choke. So if you turn that up to 10, then I don't know what the seconds equal to, but basically, maybe a second worth of choke. Oh, and it looks like the battery needs to be charged. So we'll go ahead and power on the track. While the controller is receiving power from the track, it charges the battery, and the controller can work, and of course your car can work too. So let's go and fix those settings. I think the max speed did not get stored, so we're going to go back and turn that up to 100. There we go. And then Like I was saying, the amp choke or spin control, you can turn that up or down, 10 different steps on that. Let's see if I can feel it or hear a difference here. Oh yeah. So if I turn that back down, it's going to go instantly. If I turn that up, you should be able to hear the pitch go up. Yeah, so it takes about a whole second on max. Let's see, what else do we got? The button on the back is full brakes. You can use it as launch control if you want. The other cool feature, if you have the right version of the controller, is the memory storage. So it can store up to 8 configurations. To switch between the memory banks, you hold any of the 3 knobs down, hold the brake, and then pull the trigger. And when you let go, it'll be the bank that you see on the screen. So now it's bank 2, now it's bank 3, now it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and back to 1. And it just keeps going around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. So this is the one that I was messing with. Or maybe it was 2 that I was messing with. Nope, it was 1. There we go. You can change how many banks you use during power up. So what you need to do is hold the brake button while you turn the power on and keep holding it until you make your changes. And then as soon as you release the brake button, the changes will take effect. So I'm going to show you that now. You can do this when the battery is charged. You can do this without track power just by turning it on. But we're just going to let it keep charging here. So I'm going to hold the brake button and power the track again. And now you see a configuration screen. So some of these options only make sense for the digital system that Sillage Racing makes. But you can change what color the controller is assigned to. You can change whether it's kid mode or pro mode, which is basically locking out the knob positions. In kid mode, you can't change the knob positions. And then changing ID as if it's a digital controller. But if you press the knob, then you have options for left or right-handed, which is what that R means. So this one changes left or right-handed. I leave it on right-handed. This knob changes ghost mode, but you can't, I don't think that, yeah, that's not an analog controller feature either. But this knob controls how many banks. So it says memory bank 8. So if I turn that down, I can turn it down to 1. So there's only 1 memory bank in use. Or I can set it to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8. However many memory banks I want to use. If I don't want to use all 8, I only want to use 2 or 3. Then it can simplify switching between them by limiting the number of banks in use. That way I've only got to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, if I'm only using 2 or 3 banks or whatever, right? The only other thing you need to be aware of with this controller is the battery is in there for a reason, to have the controller computer working before the track power comes on. If your track is like many where the power cutoff to the controller or to the track entirely goes before the controller, so when the track is off, the controller is also off. Some tracks control the power between the controller and the track, so your controller would have power when it's hooked up, but the track would not have power until the race starts. But if you're hooked up to a track that the controllers don't have power until the race starts, then you want to turn the power on the controller before the race begins, because there's a little delay. So I'm going to hold the trigger like we're starting a race and turn the power on, and you'll see the delay between when the power comes on and when the car actually goes. So I'm going to just do a small amount of throttle here. All right, so that was about half a second-ish. So that's what you're going to get if you forget to turn your controller on before the start of the race. That doesn't exist if you have your controller turned on first. So hopefully there's enough charge we can demonstrate that. So no track power. I'm going to turn it on, let it boot up, then I'm going to hold the trigger and turn the track on. Pretty much instantaneous. So that's the main thing to know about this controller. You want the version that has the battery in it so that the computer is alive before the track gets power. And just remember to turn it off so that it doesn't waste the battery. So between heats, or definitely at the end of the race night, you want to turn it off. And every once in a while, just leave it plugged in with the track turned on. You can also charge it via USB. It's got a USB jack in there, so you can plug it into any USB power source with a USB-C connector and just charge it up. But as you see, it only takes a few minutes. So if you're going through a race night, your controller is getting charged while you're racing. So it's unlikely that you're going to use up the battery by turning it on a few seconds ahead of time for every heat, or even leaving it on for the whole night, depending on how much of a break there is between heats. But there's other features, like I didn't go over how to program the custom throttle curve, because I think that the ones in there are good enough for me, so I don't really use that feature, but that's in there. You can post a comment here or wherever you see this video and ask me questions if you have any. To buy the controller, you need to go to sillageracing.com, I think, or .fr. I'll put a link in the video description, or send an email to David Kaya at Sillage Racing. That's not his email. I'll put his email in the signature too, or in the video description information. But just, send an email, ask him what's available, how, what the pricing is, shipping to your country, etc. And, ask him, make sure he knows what features you want to have in the controller before you decide which one you want to buy. And again, feel free to post a question and I'll try to answer the best I can. Thanks a lot.